In 2026, we're in a new paradigm. For many people, it's not enough anymore to have a stable, well paid job. You want more from your work, more purpose, fulfillment, meaning, making a difference, alignment. And if you're already spending so much time on projects that are taking you away from your family, away from the time you could be spending and investing in yourself, then it better be aligned and worthwhile. And this isn't just you, this is a collective shift that's happening. So, if you've been in a career for 10 plus years and you're feeling unhappy, then it's actually quite normal for you to feel like there's more for you and that you have a desire of, oh, I don't want my work to just be work. I don't want my work to just give me financial stability and some sort of feeling of security, but I really want to love what I do and I want to enjoy what I do and I want to have an impact with what I do. And so in this episode, I'm going to tell you exactly what I would do with 10 plus years experience in a career and feeling unhappy. So this is from my perspective as a professional coach and from someone who's done quite a few career shifts herself. Now, before we get to the juicy stuff, go and grab my free Career Clarity Masterclass. This is just the resource for you. So, if you're feeling stuck in your career or lost, not knowing what your next career move could be, but knowing that something needs to change, this is the thing that's going to bring you clarity around your next career move so that you can finally know what your next step is and take action. So the important thing is that the access to the Career Clarity Masterclass closes today. So go and grab it for yourself while you can. This can be a game changer for you. All right, with that being said, let's get started with the episode. Hello and welcome to What If It Is Possible, a podcast for your heart and soul that gives you full permission to follow your biggest, boldest, most audacious goals and dreams and helps you see what's possible for you. My name is Taida. I'm your host and I'm the founder of a premium private coaching practice, a certified psychological consultant, a professional life and career coach, and I help ambitious and heart-centered professionals and leaders find their purpose, create meaningful, fulfilling lives and careers, doing the work they love and making a real impact in the world. If you're new here, subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with your friends and loved ones so that they can create fulfilling and meaningful lives too. This is if I were 10 plus years in my career and unhappy, I'd do this. Okay, I am ready to start this episode with you. My energy is high. I was listening to a bunch of really energizing songs. Sean Paul, Temperature. Who remembers that one? That was such a throwback. Jalebi from Usher and what's his name? No. If you put in Jalebi, you'll Tesher, I think is his name. So my energy should be through the roof, and hopefully this is going to light up some energy in you too, wherever you're listening to this. And we have a really exciting topic, and this topic really invited me to tune into and tap into my thinking. Like, okay, so what would I actually do if I were 10 plus years into my career and unhappy? What would be the exact steps that I'd be taking? So it was such a great creative exercise, and I want to share it with you, especially knowing what I know now after doing 3 career transitions and all of the coaching experience and energy experience and psychological background that I have. It feels like there's a lot that I can share with you that will hopefully serve you or at least give you some inspiration. So, first thing that I would do is start from the inside out, meaning I would not make any changes in the outside world. So, not looking at any job boards, not having any conversations. A lot of times when we're unhappy, we are in a state of, our system is kind of, okay, something needs to change. I need to make a change. And the first instinct is to start making changes in the outer world, like already applying to stuff or contacting people. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you always want to make sure that you come from the energy of power versus the energy of fear. And a lot of times when we're in that place, we're like, okay, I need security, I need to change, I need just something right now. And we don't pause long enough to actually make a conscious decision and an aligned decision. Okay, so my invitation for you, don't do anything in the outer world. Give yourself a little bit of time. And I'm going to tell you, we'll go through all the steps. The reason why we want to start from the inside out. So I'm going to give you two perspectives. Okay, so from a coaching and psychological perspective, your unconscious system steers 95% of your behavior and how you work. So essentially, it's like if the stuff that you're not aware of isn't, or let's say if your unconscious is in fear mode, that's going to steer your decisions. And then from an energetic standpoint, we're 99% energy and 1% matter. So in both cases, if you jump into doing outer action first, especially from a fearful state, what you're actually doing is a drop in the ocean. It's like in the paradox here is that you could use up a lot of energy actually, and a lot of time to do those changes in the outside world, but they won't really be bringing you the results that you want, right? You could spend hours speaking to people, crafting your CV in a perfect way, or looking at job boards and applying, but there's really no change. And that's because, again, you're working with those 5 conscious percent and 1% matters. So what we want to do, we want to work smart, okay? We do not want to work hard. And if we want to create changes in a way that feels light and easy and aligned, we want to work with the bigger chunk of that cake, which is 95% of the unconscious or 99% energy. So that's where we want to start. If we start there, the moment that those changes get created in your inner world, in your system, so in your unconscious, that's going to lead to different behaviors and that's going to lead to different results. So we want to take advantage of that. All right. So no changes in the outside world. We're going to start with the inside world. And here's the first thing. So if I was 10 plus years into my career and unhappy, the first thing I would do, is get crystal clear on my 5 core values and see if I'm actually living them in my career. So I know I talk a lot about values, but it's because they really, really matter. So you want to understand what is a non-negotiable for me, what really, really matters to me. Because if that part isn't fulfilled to a certain degree, you're never going to feel fulfilled. Values are such a good decision-making filter, but they're also like a North Star in orientation, and they give you a clue to what really makes you up, like what is so, so important to you, that if it's not there, if it's not a given, it's just like so many other things can be there, but it's just not going to feel fulfilling. So, for example, let's say that you find out that one of your values is growth. And you also find out that you've not been growing in your career, that for the past 2-3 years, it's been kind of same. And it's just not it. It's not lighting you up. You don't feel challenged and you want growth. Now, before going, to look for another company, what you want to look at is, okay, what are some ways how I could bring more growth to my position, right? And then when you get clear with that, that could be a moment where you have an actual conversation. So you'll notice with some of this stuff, I've kind of organized this in inner work first and then outer work. But in practice, a lot of times it's going to be first inner, then outer, first inner, then outer. So it's a combination. In this case, if you find out, okay, I've not really been living the value of growth, what are some options that I could have to live it in my company? And maybe that's a promotion, maybe that's a different role completely. Maybe that's taking a leadership course, or maybe that's employee development, or whatever, or maybe that's a new project that you bring in proactively. So you want to have that conversation. And then if after that conversation you realize that your company isn't available to offer this to you, that's where, you can start thinking about, okay, so this matters to me. Like these 5 things, they have to be there. They are your non-negotiables. And if they're not, that is a big, major red flag. Meaning, and then again, it's a choice that you're making. You could still stay in this career, but then you're just kind of going to have to settle for the fact that you're going to be a little unhappy and never really fully fulfilled. Or you could again look for ways of, okay, how could I be fulfilled? If not here, what are some of my other options? And the benefit of knowing your values, is core values, is once you know them, I find this so helpful in the job searching process, because you can immediately, some of you are gonna connect with other people, do some networking, reaching out to people in your community or your network circle to ask about positions. Some people are going to look at job boards. Some people are going to do like all other methods that you do when it comes to job search. But values really give you an opportunity to apply that filter onto the, whatever company that you're applying to. So now you will know, oh my God, growth really matters to me. It really matters to me. And if the company that, you're looking at, and you'll be able to see this. And a lot of people, a lot of job ads already reflect their values. And if it's not directly mentioned, then it's kind of implied, in between the lines. So if you notice, okay, this company doesn't really value growth, then immediately you have your answer, right? There's values as your decision-making filter. The same thing if you really value your family. And it's like, yes, you're ambitious, but you also value family. And if you notice in a job ad, okay, this is someone this company is looking for ambitious people who, would potentially be available on the weekends for phone calls. I mean, that kind of tells you everything. So you want to start applying that decision-making filter as you go, and as you then make decisions about your current or future employer. Number 2 that I would do is I would start discovering my purpose and my unique gifts and talents. So purpose is something, like I mentioned in the intro, that so many of us collectively are yearning for. And this is what I mean when I say new paradigm. Times are different. We don't live in 1950s, 60s, 70s, where the main collective thing was survival. A lot of people, collectively were like, we need to survive, we need to put food on the table, and we go to work in order to create that. And then some people were enjoying more and some people were enjoying less, but work was really seen as a means to an end. Today, that's not the case anymore. Today, we look at work as a container for self-expression, for self-advancement, and also for what's in that individualization, self-accomplishment. I'm looking for all of the self words. So we want more out of work. I mean, that's it. We don't want to just go to work and do the thing. Like if we're there, we really want to make it worthwhile. So that being said, there's going to be groups of people who do what they love, they enjoy it. And if you ask them, they're going to say, I know my purpose. This is my purpose. Like I mentioned 1,000 times, I have lots of friends who knew that they wanted to be doctors since they were very little because of a certain event in their lives. Maybe a parent getting sick or similar, and that really awoke within them this desire for healing. And they've been on that journey for a long time. But the majority of people, really truly the majority of people, does not know what their purpose is. So I would start there. I'd be like, I'm not going to wait anymore. I want to figure this out now. And so I'll condense this, okay, just for this episode. But for those of you who really want to start looking for your purpose and who are, serious about this, you can start with my free Purpose and Potential mini course. It's a 3-day course that gives you like a solid foundation, or at least you start that self-discovery process. Highly recommend. So I'm going to leave again all the links, kind of show them here on the screen, or I'm going to leave them in the description. But right, to get to the point, your purpose is twofold. Number one, that you live yourself authentically. Number two is that you use your unique gifts and talents. Now, what do I mean by that? What do I mean by living authentically? It means to be the most authentic version of you possible in any moment. And this is something a lot of us struggle with because throughout our life, we've put on masks and we think we need to be a certain way. And sometimes, in the systems that we chose, for example, in the organizations that we work, we won't be able to fully express ourselves or be authentically ourselves. I remember in my corporate marketing job, it was kind of desired to wear more business clothes, at least on the account project management side. On the creative side, it was kind of a bit more free, but on the account side, they really wanted you to kind of wear high heels and a blazer, things like that. So there were certain restrictions, especially if that wasn't your thing, and definitely wasn't my thing at the time. But then you kind of put yourself in there. That's one example where you can't be authentically yourself. And then sometimes it's not going to be a deal breaker. Sometimes like, fine, I'll just wear a blazer. Who cares, but sometimes it's going to be a big thing and you're going to feel really constricted and that you really can't express yourself or express your opinion. And now if you don't express yourself, if you're not authentic, if you hold yourself back, you never really show the real you. And the whole purpose is that we get to see the real you. And this doesn't mean that, in every kind of environment, you're going to be like sharing all of your deepest emotions, but it just means that you're authentic, in the kind of realm of that authenticity within the boundaries of that relationship or that system that you have to be authentic. And, for someone being authentic, I mean, just to give you a couple of examples, I've written down a couple here. Maybe you could start sharing about your interests at work. Maybe that's not something that you've allowed yourself up until now. So I had a client who, this is so interesting. She was very much into astrology and, also believed, let's say, more in the universe and things like that. And she worked for a big healthcare company. So from the outside, the typical corporate world that's still pretty, has a masculine system or a system that's tailored to the masculine. So, it's like go, achieve, do, the outside stuff matters, the inner stuff doesn't really matter, no emotions, just we power through. So she was kind of in the closet when it came to her interest in astrology. And then I remember after one session, one session we had, she told me, Taira, I shared with my colleague, like very silently, very quietly, very like still holding herself back, but I shared about that I like astrology. And then the woman that she was talking to, she was like, "What? Me too." And then all of a sudden, that, not only allowed her to build a connection, but it also brought a bit more lightness into the work and saying, "Oh, I could also bring this part of myself into work." So it doesn't mean that she was all of a sudden giving astrology classes to thousands of employees, or like, going around with what's this called, a Schild in German, like with a board saying, or a billboard saying, "I love astrology," but it just means that she allowed herself with certain people in the beginning to be more authentic. And you see, when we're authentic, that's where we can actually meet and connect with people that are aligned with us. And if you're wearing masks the whole time, you're not going to be finding the thing that's really aligned with you. That thing only comes when you're being authentically yourself. And then maybe you also, the way that you can be more authentic is to bring more openness in the way that you communicate. Maybe before you wouldn't share that something doesn't feel good for you. And now you choose, okay, I don't need to go into detail, but let's resolve this conflict. Let's not sweep it under the rug, but maybe it's like, okay, let me do a communication course so that I can actually learn how to communicate in a safe way without like exposing my soul, but still have my clear boundaries. But I need for the other person to hear what I'm feeling and what's happening within me in order for us to productively move forward. So these are different ways of how you can be authentically yourself. And then, obviously through your clothes, obviously just through sharing your interests, sharing what you love, sharing your genuine energy, because that's what we love, right? That's what we connect with. It's like who we really are. That's cool. Like, I want to know and see who you are, not the version of you that you put into the world. That's nice, but what I love, love, love is who you really are. So that's be authentically you. And then it's discovering, or the second part is using your unique gifts and talents. So these are, I separate this into two categories. One is things you've just been born with, like things you're naturally good at without needing to try. Like for me, it's, for example, learning languages, or it's communication, or empathy, or listening, or organization. Like, I love to organize things. I didn't need to learn this. It just comes very naturally. For others, maybe maths. For others, maybe singing. There's so many things that you're born with. And this just goes, or in other words, this goes beyond just like the traditional talents, drawing, singing, things like that. This is really, we want to look at what comes naturally to you in all aspects of your being. It could be that you're extremely good at seeing the big picture, or that you're really a visionary and you can see certain things, or you can connect certain systems with ease that other people really struggle with. So a good way to kind of start thinking about your gifts is what comes easy to me that other people struggle with. So that's that. And then it's obviously also strengths and things that you've acquired through your life and that you've mastered. And this could be project management. This could be a certain program, software program that you're really good at. It could also be that you've mastered communication or sales. It's like skills that you've learned and acquired throughout your life. Now, there's a really, really cool analogy that I want to share with you here. I've shared it. Well, analogy or a story. It's more a story. I've shared it a couple of times, so you may have heard it, but I think it can't and it won't harm us if we hear it again. Okay, so this story is either attributed to Freud or Jung, I'm not sure, but it is connected with the work of experts in the field of unconscious. So there, they believe that each of us come to the world with a certain seed within us, okay? And I'll give you the analogy of a tree for that seed. So it could be that you within you have the seed of an oak tree, and I have the seed of a pine tree. And now, in order for you to reach your highest potential, to live your most fulfilled and aligned life, the easiest way to do that is to nurture that seed of the oak tree that was already there and grow it. It's not going to happen if you, as a small oak tree, keep looking over at the pine tree and being like, oh, I want to be a pine tree. I don't want to be an oak tree. I want to be a pine tree because, well, an oak tree can never be a pine tree, nor can a pine tree ever be an oak tree. So the biggest service you can do to yourself is really look at, okay, what is that seed within me? And if I'm an oak tree, really fully embracing, okay, I'm an oak tree. And then how can I be the best freaking oak tree ever? And then, you do whatever you need for that seed to grow, to blossom, and for you to become this magnificent oak tree. So this is exactly what's happening with our gifts and talents. So those seeds, or that seed, are your unique natural gifts and talents, things that come easy to you. And if you nurture and grow those, that path to fulfillment is going to be so much better for you. And it may be that you're noticing, I've kind of been nurturing the pine tree seed versus my actual seed, and I've been doing the other thing for 10 years. Maybe now is the time to actually start nurturing your real seed and see what happens if I start here. The third thing that I would do is first get a notebook or a diary or whatever, or a journal, however you want to call it. And I would start collecting information. So I would write down everything and anything that inspires me, that resonates with me, that lights me up, from the smallest to the biggest things. It could be, that person, the way that they do that particular thing, that quality that they have, to, oh, I really like how they do business, or I love how they build their company, or I love what kind of team culture they've built, or I love how they present themselves. I would just gather information. Or I love the that type of work that they're doing. I never even knew it existed. So we want to ground all of this information, because if it's not written down, it's all very, very abstract. So that's one thing, collecting information about what lights you up. That can give you a huge insight. And on the other side, also writing down your ideas. Because here's the thing, if once you understand your values, your unique gifts and talents, inevitably, the wheels in your mind are going to start turning, and also your system is going to start readjusting to this new reality, and it's going to open itself up for possibility. And ideas are going to start coming your way, whether that's ideas to start your own project, or ideas to start your own real business, or ideas how you could change things where you currently are, ideas what you could develop, or also not just ideas, but people can come into your life, new experiences can come into your life once you start being open and actually aware of what's in you. And so maybe you realize through this whole process and through writing stuff down, like just writing everything, that you really have this almost excitement for a project. And let's say it's a podcast. And now it could be that you're like, do you know what? Let me start a podcast. I really love history, let's say, and I really love, I don't know, the period of 1880s or Second World War, it doesn't matter. And you have this really unique perspective because you've read so many books and you're really knowledgeable. And I mean, and you could actually do something with that knowledge. And so you're like, okay, let me start a podcast. And maybe you start your own podcast on the side just for you, just for you. It doesn't need to be this huge thing yet. Or maybe you're like, I really enjoy teaching, or I really enjoy interviewing. Why don't I pitch the idea for the podcast to my company? And that's where you can start to, again, make already some outer moves and combine what you're passionate about with where you're currently at. And I think the one that I'm thinking about now, the podcast, is I know that Vogue, so the American Vogue, they have a podcast where they interview certain people and they just bring in this new, fresh perspective. When The Devil Wears Prada 2 came out, they had 3 employees on there to kind of debunk the myths. So The Devil Wears Prada was a book at first, then it got turned into a movie, and this year the sequel came out after 20 years. And so at the time, it was a huge, oh my God, this is what's happening at Vogue offices. I mean, if you read the book then or seen the movie, then you know what it's about. But it shed a light into an industry and into an institution where people didn't really know how things work, and it was shocking and also interesting, all of these things. And so they had 3 former assistants to Anna Wintour kind of share their experiences, like I said, and then debunk or confirm whether the things that Lauren Weisberger, which was the author, were true or not. So very interesting take, right? And so it all serves, obviously, the company, but it also serves to the person. I think the new editor-in-chief is hosting the podcast, and it's a way for her to use her gifts and talents too. So there's so many different things and so many different projects, and I really, really invite you to start thinking in projects and what could I do? What project? Because project, and at least the way that I see it, and maybe this is going to resonate with you, is something that it doesn't have to be this big and it doesn't have to be a forever thing. It can be, okay, it has a beginning, it has an end. Let me see how it goes and let's optimize if we need to. But either way, doing this or this process really helps to inform your system to see what's possible and focus on the possibility and on the ideas and that creative juice versus on what's not here and what's not working. So you're really opening up your system to possibility. And pay attention to what feels good in your body, what lights you up, what gives you goosebumps, what energizes you, what you're like, oh my God, that person really resonates with me. I remember years ago when Laura Seiler, when I first heard her podcast, so this was 10 years ago, and I started to consume her content. I was so inspired by the work that she was doing, as undoubtedly, thousands, 100,000s now probably did. And I love that she did things non-traditionally. So for example, she had this 4-week course, and the materials, I was used to those boring school materials where everything is just like black and white. It's all Times New Roman or Arial. Like there's no creativity, there's no color, there's no icons. And in that cohort that I joined, you got a physical workbook, and it was this thick, and it was colorful, and it was interesting, and it had like gold writing, and it was playful, it was just different and fresh. And me being in the corporate world at the time, being used to those boring PowerPoints and, like I said, Times New Roman 12 Word docs. For me, this was like, what? You could do something in the world that's playful and different. And I loved that. And that resonated with me so much. I was like, what? And another thing, just in because it's in service of what we're talking about here, really understanding what and who resonates and why. I love that, the way that she presented, the way that she articulated herself. She came from a place of kindness and a bit more like calm energy. And that was the first time that I was aware. I'm sure there were people like that, but that I was aware of people who, um, weren't, how do you call those people, like extroverts, who like want to be like, ha, I'm the center of attention. I love it. And who just love standing in front of the camera, and you love them for that. That's their gift, where they just like, they love it, and they connect with the camera, and you feel like they're so entertaining, right? But it's like, wow, they're there. But she came from a different energy, an energy that I resonated much more with, because I'm also not like a hot type of person, I'm more of a, okay, let's sit down, let's have a conversation. I'm more calm. And I was like, wow. And I still find her intriguing, and I loved her authenticity. And so I was like, that's what I want. Like, that's what I want to, who I want to be, and what I want for the next chapter of my life. And it really was like a trigger for my change, or she was. So please pay attention to the people in your life that make you feel something and why they make you feel something, because that's a sign, that there's something about them is letting you know, oh, I want that. I want more of that. And then know that in this, while you're writing this down, do not think about the how. Like, that's not something for you to think about. You think about what. What would be exciting? What would be inviting? What do I actually like? What lights me up? That's your only job for now, because we're still kind of in the inner world scope. Now we're going to start moving into the outer world. And my guess is that this is what you were waiting for, because so many people are like, oh, enough with the inner world. Let's go to the outer world. I want to take action. I want to see changes. I want to see things happen on the outside. I want my life to change, which is like, absolutely. I get you. I feel you. And most likely by this point, you would have been inspired by something already, and you would have wanted to take action anyways. But, just for the sake of it, let's say that you have not done any kind of outer work, that you've just really been focused on the inner stuff. Now we're moving into the area where we're like, okay, but what can I actually do on the outside? So if you've listened to this the whole time and you're thinking to yourself, you know what? For me, a smaller change isn't going to do. Like, I really want to change a career, and I want to focus on that part, because if it's a smaller change, like you bringing more values into your life, or starting a project within your company, that's going to be much easier to do, and the step is pretty much there. The bigger challenge becomes where there's a massive change, like a bigger transition, right, where you have these 10 plus years experience in your career, and you're unhappy, and you're noticing, well, this is not at all the work I want to do, and this is not at all the company I want to work for, and I actually want to do something completely different. And if that's the case, then these are the steps that I want to talk to you about, steps that you can take in the outer world in order to make that transition as easy and light as possible. An overarching guideline that I have for you is start now. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, do not wait. Start with the low hanging fruit, but start now. You do not want to wait until you're burnt out, completely demotivated, and in a situation where you really start hating your job, and then frantically searching for something else just to create some financial safety and stability for yourself. So we don't want that to happen. It may happen, and it happens for some people. It happened for me too. You'll survive, and you'll find your way out of that too, but if we're talking about, let's make it easy for you and light for you and less stressful, then starting now is a much, let's say, peaceful way of making that transition. So there are a couple of things that you could start doing now while you're still in your work. Definitely do the values thing and then start adding more values into where you currently are, so that for the remainder of the time that you stay here in your current job, the one that you're unhappy in, that it at least feels more aligned, if not completely aligned, and that it's not just like a complete, unhappiness, that you find parts of it that can help you, that can make it seem more manageable until you really find what you want. So we'll go through a couple of steps here, one after another. The first thing that you could do, that I would do actually, is to create a simple but good financial plan for the transition and for a couple of years afterwards. So, this is something that's gonna work wonders for your mind and for your nervous system, because you can see like the foreseeable future, and you can actually look at your financial situation and be like, okay, so do I have investments, do I have savings, do I want to use that to kind of bridge between once I finish that job and start my new career, or for the first years of my new career, do I need to do some financial planning, meaning like put a bit more savings to the side, maybe invest a little bit more. So you want to be clear on your financial situation. And one thing that you could do is download my free income planner, which is I've created it especially for people who are in transition. I think the way that I've set it up is for people who already kind of understand that they want to start a business or offer products or services, but really you could use it and make it your own. It's going to, on one hand, give you an overview of your current expenses and what you're currently spending, what you want to be making, and what you need to do in order to create that income. But it's a good additional resource. So, financial plan. Number two, you want to start acquiring the skills you need. So once you get clarity around either the next thing, or there's an interest point, or you already know and you feel within you, no, that's where I want to go. Like, I want to go into coaching. I want to go into being a dancer. It was interesting. I was just the other day listening to an interview, and this was Vincent Patterson. So he choreographed a couple of videos or pieces for Michael Jackson. And what I found so fascinating about his story is that I think he started dancing pretty late professionally. I actually think he said he was about 21 when he got into dancing, which is, if you think about how a lot of people start when they're 3, 4, and he started at 21. And if you see him move, you can watch any of his videos, you can see like, wow, he's amazing in his body expression. What I'm trying to say is that, no matter where you are, you can always start and then acquire the skills needed. And so if you know what you want to do, start, whether you're going to enroll in a course, you go into a certification program, maybe even start gathering some practical experience. And maybe you're like, I want to start a podcast. Cool. You start a podcast right now, learn what you need to learn and then start. I remember, because often I understand where you're at, right? You have a full-time job, and not just that, and then you have family. You want to have time for them. Like, you probably don't want to lose time, I'm going to say, on these additional things. But really, let me remind you that if this is something that you're genuinely interested in, you will not mind, because when I was back in my corporate job, And I was thinking, what could I do? What could I do like after work to kind of educate myself? But if it was stuff that wasn't resonating with me, then it felt like a waste of time. But if you're learning from people that you actually want to learn from and that you're actually interested in, then nothing is gonna feel wasteful. And if anything, you're gonna be energized. And my first coaching certification that I did, the one in the USA, we had 3 weekly calls during the work week every evening. So it was their morning, evening in Europe. So for 1 year, for 3 evenings per week, 2 years actually, because I repeated it because I loved it so much. 2 years, 3 weekdays from 7 till 9, I was learning. And then on the weekend, I was learning some more because we had questions we needed to answer for each module. And then obviously, there was other things like you needed to hand in your videos, you needed to work with clients and prepare for the exam. So there was lots of work, a lot of work, but it wasn't hard. Of course, it was like, it required time and effort and energy, but it wasn't hard, and I loved it, and I connected with new people, and all of that gave me energy. So remember that as you're learning and acquiring new skills, let it really learn from people you like, that resonate with you, from the content that resonates with you, and that way that learning process is going to be a pure joy and pure. It's going to just add an extra something to your life versus it being like another thing on your list. And then you already want to start building connections and meeting people in the industry that you want to work in. So, I want you to look at this not as, oh my God, now I have to go to these events and I have to do this and I have to reach out to people. I really invite you to look at this, from a perspective of curiosity, from an open heart, from someone who genuinely loves and has an interest in this stuff, and some people are going to be open, some people won't. It's fine. It's like no attachment, no expectations. Sometimes you're just going to, I don't know, maybe you're going to comment under a YouTube video or something, and then you're going to connect with someone. Sometimes it's going to be, you're going to intentionally find someone on LinkedIn and write to them too, or in a Facebook group, or you're going to go to a networking event, or it's just going to be people in your own community anyways. But the idea is here really to already put yourself energetically, we talked about this a lot, into the energetic field of where you want to be in, because the more you're there, the more your nervous system starts perceiving that as your new normal, and doesn't feel dangerous anymore. And it's like, yeah, totally, I could work here and I know these people and I kind of have a feel for how this is. And you may never use these connections, you may use them, but it's really for your energy, let's say. And then you never know where that's going to take you. And here's the funny thing, even if you connect with people ABC and they give you some information, maybe person D that you've never even thought of is then going to come to your world from a completely different direction, just because of all the work you did already with A, B, and C. But so you want to do this to put yourself in the energetic field. The next thing, if you already know within your heart, I want to start a business, I want something more than just a project, than a hobby. I want to start my own business. I want to be an entrepreneur. I really want to go live with this. Then my strong invitation for you is to start writing a business plan. So this is going to give you a lot of clarity. For some people, again, it's going to be a boring thing. For some people, it's going to be a creative process. I found when I was writing my business plan that it forced me to make some decisions and to ask myself some questions that I otherwise wouldn't. And I was like, oh, that's why people do these. It makes sense because it gives you an overview over the finance part, over the marketing part, over who you want to work with, so your ideal clients, over your products, over what you need, what your mission is, what your vision is. So, and your hands are going to be full if you start there, just in terms of, it's going to give you a lot to think about. And you wanted an outer thing to work on. So there you go. This is my task for you. You can start working on your business plan. And here also, if you know, okay, this is the industry I want to go in, I'm going to do my business plan. This is the time where you really get to, as you're in this process, read business books and learn about it, learn about your field, learn about business in that field. So there's always going to be experts. I mean, bless, and this is the gift of the time that we live in. Even if you want to be, I'm thinking now, if you want to be a priest, because I'm just looking at our church here, I can see it through my window. I'm absolutely sure that there are people out there that you can find probably on YouTube that are going to tell you how they became a millionaires being a priest. I'm absolutely sure of that. And they're going to give you business advice for that particular area. So learn from them, and learn from people. This is a similar advice that I shared before, but learning from people, or at least this is what I would do. I would learn from people that interest me. I would not go for the typical business book, like business school type of thing. If it wasn't resonating with me, I would go for someone who teaches business in a way that I can understand. And I would also learn business from people who are doing business in a way that I want to do business. So if I want to do business hardcore way, hardcore meaning I am all in, I'm willing to work 80 hours a week, everything else going to have to wait. This is my priority, like hustle mode, go, go, go. Work on weekends, da, 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 da. Then, you learn from those types of people, like Stephen Bartlett. Bartlett comes to mind from Diary of a CEO. Like he has more of that hustle, or Gary Vee, that kind of mentality. And there are different approaches. So you just choose your approach. And then if you're someone who's like, I do want to build a business, but I'm not in a hurry and I want to make it sustainable and I want it to be, I want to have a good work and life balance, then you learn from other people. One person that comes to mind is, I remember her name, Dea. I know she has a YouTube channel. She talks a lot about, how does she name it, like easeful entrepreneur, something like that. So it's like, how can you be an entrepreneur still making 400K a year, whatever, but without being in action, without being in hustle mode all the time, and still having and enjoying your private life. So learning from people who do business the way that you want to do business, and also from people who teach business in the way that you like to be taught. And then the last thing, which I already mentioned a couple of times before, but I'm including it here as a full point, start as soon as possible. Like the best way you're going to figure out whether this is something you like, enjoy, whether you want to have this as a career or as a business, is to just start. So you either start sharing about your thing on TikTok or on YouTube, or you start a Substack. Or one of my former clients just started an amazing Substack about, she has a jewelry brand and she's writing great stuff over there. Start, or did I already mention start a podcast or start another project? It's like once you are already in action, that's going to give you the most feedback and the most information. And I'm going to share a project that I started years ago. I don't think I've ever mentioned it on the podcast, but so I live in Frankfurt when I'm in Germany. And in Frankfurt, there was this, especially compared to other bigger German cities, the, let's say, personal growth community, it wasn't centralized. There was no hub, so to speak, like the personal growth hub. And I had an idea, okay, it would be so good if we had some sort of a personal growth hub in Frankfurt where you could just find information about events and people that are coming or hosting things in one place versus, right now, I think this is still the case unless someone did something else. If the only way you're going to find out that something is happening is if you have to know the people, or you have to know certain locations. It's not as easy to find information, is what I'm trying to say. So anyways, I started this project, like a community-centered project called Frankfurt in Bloom, right? To symbolize people that are more interested in personal growth, spiritual growth, professional growth, and that are interested in projects, people, workshops, seminars, experiences that offer that kind of stuff. So I was doing that for about a year, and I actually quite enjoyed it, but it came to a point where I was like, it was a point where I needed to make a decision. Am I going to keep doing this as a hobby, putting my time in it, or am I going to monetize this? Because, my workload was increasing. There was more and more people interested, whether, providers that wanted to showcase their services or products, or also normal people, who wanted to know more about the events and where to apply and things like that. So, and that at that point, I was like, do you know what? I will not monetize this, and I will not continue with this project, because it's the more time I put here, the less time I have to grow my coaching business. And so I realized, okay, I actually want to use that time to grow my coaching business and do projects around my coaching business, not something that's separate from it, because that's another thing that I would then need to grow. And essentially then I would have two businesses, which was a position I didn't want to put myself in at the time. So the thing is, that whole project taught me a lot, so much, and I loved it. I loved it. But I realized, this isn't something I actually want to do for a living. It was an interesting project, but as a side project, not necessarily as my main thing. And so if I would have just thought about that, I would never get all of that information. Well, I wouldn't get all the learnings, I wouldn't get all the connections and the experiences, but I also wouldn't get like the feedback and the information of, what's a yes for me and what not. There you go. So those would be the exact steps that I would take if I had 10 plus years experience in a career and I was unhappy in 2026. So know that if you are, especially if you're starting a new career or a new business, I don't care how old you are, whether you're 35, 45, 65, 55, 75, I don't care. It's like, first of all, if there's something within you that wants to be brought to life, please follow and honor that, because there's a reason that that idea came to you. If nothing else, it's there for you to explore it, and it's going to take you to the next thing. But if you are in a position where you're changing careers more, let's say in a bigger way, I want you to know that you get to be a beginner, you get to try things out, and that when you do the things that you actually love doing, it's a completely different life. It's a completely different life, and there's no way you could regret it if you follow your drive. And also, if you try something and you notice, okay, this was just for a season, it wasn't for a life. The experience, if you choose to look at it like that, right, the experience and the connections you make can be invaluable and something that is going to be with you for life. And again, I don't want you to regret anything. And even, I want you to hear this too. If an experience is there for a season, it doesn't mean that it's not going to lead you to the other thing, which is and can be for life. Okay? So nothing is, in German you say, nichts ist umsonst. Nothing happens for no reason. Everything is valuable, and we never know because we don't have the bigger picture. But what we know is that if we follow our alignment and our joy, that's always gonna be the path that's gonna lead to our fulfillment. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode. It was so amazing to have you here. Now, I would love to hear your biggest insights on YouTube, so leave them in the comments, or you can DM me at Tyda Glaser on Instagram. And if there's someone in your life who is in a similar situation and they're really unhappy where they are with lots of years of experience and thinking about where they could take their career or their path, and share this episode with them. You never know how this may serve. Know that you matter. Know that your dreams matter. And remember that anything is possible when you start to change your inner world. Sending you so many blessings. Have an amazing week, and I can't wait to see you here next week. Bye-bye. Mwah.